Okay, in the interest of time and the very busy agenda we have today, I'd like to call the meeting of the Faculty Senate to order. Some of you may have summarized by not Audrey Korsgaard. She's much better looking than I am. I am Wayne Alton, the chair-elect for the Faculty Senate. I'll be filling in for Audrey today. Just a couple of quick announcements. There will be a called meeting of the Faculty Senate 2 weeks from today. That is April 19th, Wednesday, April 19th. At 3 p.m. in this room. That will be to take up any unfinished business that we have from today's meeting, which we are anticipating. I also wanted to point out that there is a slight error at the end of the agenda. The April 25th date that's listed there is the meeting of the general faculty, not the Faculty Senate meeting. The next regularly scheduled Faculty Senate meeting will be on June 7th. Okay, but just remember we have a called meeting on April 19th. Okay, are there any corrections to the minutes from the March 1st meeting? Okay, hearing none, I will move to approve the minutes. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, great. Now, without objection, I would like to request that we take up unfinished business after the report of officers. At that time, we will continue an item that was postponed from the previous March meeting. Okay, hearing no objections, we'll modify the agenda accordingly. And at this time, I'd like to turn the podium over to Provost Arnett for her report.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today, and we're rushing towards the end of this semester, and it's hard to believe we're at the end of my second semester. And I wanted to share just some activities from the Provost area so that you could be informed as we move forward to close out our year. So as you know, we did a listening tour. I did a listening tour with every department in the university for all the academic departments. And I sent out a summary about a week ago for just high-level things from that listening tour. So first and foremost was issues around graduate student pay. We have a wide range of graduate student pay on campus. At the conclusion of that listening tour, we increased the student graduate pay for graduate students to a minimum $14 per hour, as we were doing at the university at large. We have more to do. We have a graduate school dean search currently underway. Semifinalist interviews are completed, so I'm hoping that we have a graduate school dean here by the next fall semester to help us as we move our graduate students' pay and programming forward. We also found a lot of concerns about infrastructure, and so we were able to do a few small fixes like new seats in the Long Street Theater. We also put hot water in Wardlaw Building, but there's a lot that we still need to do in terms of facilities. We manage in the university over 6 million square feet of space, and a lot of it is older space because we have a historic campus. So there's lots that we're ongoingly doing in regard to facilities, but know that we really have it as a top priority. It's just that we manage a whole lot of it. We also note that the schools and colleges are facing significant challenges with faculty and staff retention and hiring. So we're laser focused on that. We, as you'll hear in just a moment from Imagine Carolina, it will be an area that we'll be focusing on in the coming year in terms of growing our retention of our faculty and staff. So a big part of my activity the last two weeks and coming up over the next week are something we call blueprint meetings. So these are meetings that we hold with the leadership of every college, each college individually, one at a time. I want to thank the faculty budgets committees from the Faculty Senate who attend those meetings with us. They're really instructive. We go through what the goals are for the prior year and how the college has achieved those goals. And this year we implemented SMART goal strategies so that we have goals that are measurable, actionable, that have a timeline with them. And so each college has been asked to provide those SMART goals. We also go through what the projections are for budget, and that's where it's really important to have the Senate budget representatives on that committee so they hear it also. And they've been really great. Your representatives have been really great about asking questions in those meetings. So that also is a really exciting and really informative time for me as provost and for the leadership of the university. So finally, I want to just wrap up with a discussion about Imagine Carolina. So we had that event in January with about 180 faculty and senior academic staff in the colleges. And we're bringing forward a summary of that Imagine Carolina to all faculty who are and academic staff who want to attend on Friday, this Friday, April 7th at 11 a.m. And we're going to distribute the link to that tomorrow, and it will also be available on the Provost website. So we're going to present the findings from the January event. We're also going to repeat something called a Slido poll, where we ask you certain questions that we asked all of the faculty at Imagine Carolina, and see how consistent our answers are relative to the 180 faculty who attended. There were 4 breakout discussions during that retreat with Imagine Carolina. We covered curricular and delivery innovations, experiential learning and career pathways, research and scholarly impact, and faculty well-being and engagement. And we have an executive summary that our partners at Huron have worked with us to create, and that will also be available on our website for the Imagine Carolina event. And you know, we have work to do in each of those 4 areas, but we are a very creative campus. And I still want to remind you that you have a great vibe to our campus. The faculty and staff here are amazing. I'm really looking forward to next fall, bringing forward some innovations that resulted from Imagine Carolina. I'm going to be creating an implementation team along with the President's Office to address the concerns that were raised. Be working closely with the VPR, Julius Friedrichsen, also in the area of research. And so our panelists on Friday's meeting will be VPR and our 2 vice provosts, Cheryl Addy and Sandra Kelly, who will be there to answer questions if you have them. So with that, I will conclude my formal presentation and happy to take questions. All right, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Provost. Just as to let you know, President Emeritus will not be giving a report today. And let me bring up the agenda so we can all see where we're heading. This time, I'd like to turn things over to Bob Brookshire, who will be taking up the unfinished business from the last meeting. Just a brief reminder about discussion, since that's perhaps ready to kick off. Please go to the microphone, be recognized by the chair to speak, clearly state your name and affiliation. Each person can speak for 10 minutes at a time, and only 2 trips to the microphone per motion per person.
All right, thanks, Wayne. Let's see if I can find, there it is. Okay, so this was the proposal that was postponed from the previous meeting. And what the Faculty Advisory Committee would like to do is amend this proposal based on the feedback that we've received from the town hall meetings, from faculty emails, from various conversations, and we think we can make this a much stronger effort here. So what we'd like to do is strike paragraphs 1 through 6 and replace them with a resolution from the Faculty Senate. And I'm going to give you the justification for that. So paragraphs 1 through 6 have language that refers not only to the faculty, but also to the university as a whole, to students and staff. And it's not necessarily our purview to be making statements in the faculty manual that involve groups other than the faculty. Rather, we think it should be a statement that's expressed by the institution, and therefore we'd like to later in this meeting propose a resolution that would include most of this language from these 6 paragraphs that we would put forward for the Senate's approval. We've received a lot of comments that these 6 paragraphs are intermingling freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and academic freedom. And of course, these concepts are intimately related, but we're thinking that this section of the faculty manual should be focused on the academic freedom part, and that's what paragraphs 7 through 13 do. So that's our proposal at this time, is to strike 1 through 6 and propose those, the content of those as a resolution for the Faculty Senate.
So this is a motion from a committee, so it does not require a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Okay, the motion passes. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Don't,
we need
not
to
so quick,
take
Bob.
up the rest of it. Yeah. Okay. So now that we've struck 1 through 6, we need to consider paragraphs 7 through 13. I don't think I can get them all on the screen at the same time, but we'd like to propose this revision to the section on academic freedom, which is there, current text. Okay.
Okay, so Bob has moved, and I see we have someone ready to discuss already. Yes, sir.
Hi, Mark Minette, Faculty Center from English. So I have 2 relatively minor proposed amendments. The first is to strike "in principle" from the university adheres in principle to the American Association of University Professors 1940 Statement of Principles on Academic Freedom and Tenure. The justification there was that the use of "in principle" introduces unwanted ambiguity around the extent of the university's adherence to this statement and its interpretive comments.
Is there a second for this amendment? All right, amendment has been seconded. Is there any discussion on the amendment? All right, seeing no discussion, let's move to vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment as stated, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, the amendment passes.
All right, somebody else, but okay. So number 2, sorry. In this one, I'm an English professor, but full disclosure, what I really do is film and media studies. So this proposed amendment comes from the English contingent of the English professoriate. So proposed amendment 2, replace "which" from "shall avoid persistently intruding material which has no relation to their subjects," which is about the freedom in the classroom. 9. Yeah. Okay. So replace "which" with "that." And I have a justification. I'm not going to claim, somebody else wrote this, and I paraphrase it. So the clause following the "which" in the original sentence appears to be a quote defining or quote restrictive clause. It defines or limits the meaning of a preceding noun. Defining or restrictive clauses need to be introduced by "that," not the "which" that is used to introduce non-restrictive, parenthetical, unessential to the meaning clauses. Moreover, leaving which in place would suggest that the clause has no relation to their subjects is not essential to and does not define or restrict the persistently intruding material noun phrase. The shorthand grammatical rule, if the sentence has a clause it doesn't need, use which. If the sentence needs the clause, use that. So.
Thank you for that refresher in grade school grammar that we all need periodically, of course.
Yeah.
Is there a second for this amendment?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll move to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The amendment passes. Okay, so we now have the original motion with the two amendments. So we need to vote on the original motion, which is to accept these items with amendments into the faculty manual, as Bob mentioned. Is there a second for that motion? Oh, we have further discussion?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Aaron Dicker, English. So just to clarify, we struck 1 through 6.
Yes.
In that motion, we didn't change the following numbers, so
Okay,
I'd like to
yeah.
change that. So motion to renumber,
Yeah, that's an amendment to renumber.
Amendment to
Is there a
renumber?
second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Then the amendment passes.
Yeah, sorry, it's me, Mark Minette, Faculty Center for English. I had a question, actually. Originally, a revised table of contents was circulated for the faculty manual. And in that revised table of contents, there was a different title for this section. It wasn't just academic freedom. I think it added free expression to it.
Right.
So I was wondering what the plans were for that proposed, because I would like to keep it as academic freedom personally.
Right. Well, this proposal does not propose a change to that title.
Okay, I just wanted to maybe put a pin in that as something to think about when it comes to table of contents. Thanks.
Okay, so now we have the original motion with the 3 amendments. Any further discussion? We had a second, oh, wait, I'm sorry, there's someone. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm Carol Harrison from History. I think those numbers are in there for convenience in discussion, right? The faculty manual is not currently numbered like that. Am I wrong about that? I'm trying to find that.
As we are revising section 2, we are inserting numbers into section 2. So paragraph numbers so that we can make it easier to refer to different sections of the manual.
Okay, so this will become like 2A.
Right,
Okay.
right. 2.A, 0.7, point whatever, right?
Any further discussion? Did I hear a second to the original motion? Is there a second for the original motion plus the 3 amendments? Second, thank you. No further discussion, then we'll move to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion passes. Okay, we'll now move on to reports of the faculty committees. I'd like to ask the representative from the Committee on Curriculum and Courses to come up for that report. Filling in for the chair.
Hello, everyone. I'm presenting today for Bill Halk, and courses requesting approval to be offered include 6 total proposals from the College of Education, one of which was a program change to physical education, and the rest were just course updates. One for the College of Engineering, which was a course change. Oh, I apologize. My name is Sharon Gamina. I'm with the College of Engineering and Computing, Department of Integrated Information Technology. And there were 2 for the College of Arts and Sciences, course changes. 1 for the College of Hospitality and Retail Sport Management, a course change, and 1, my apologies, for the School of Music. There were no course additions, simply course changes.
So you're moving to accept the report?
I am
Yeah.
moving,
Okay.
yes.
Is there a second? Oh, no, there's no second needed because it's a committee report. Sorry, still learning my Robert's rules. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of accepting the committee report, say aye. All opposed? All right, we accept your report. Thank you. Okay. And now we will turn things right back over to Bob to continue faculty manual change discussion.
Thank you very much. Let's see. All right, so here, as promised a few minutes ago, is the resolution that we'd like to put forward. Now, how much of this I should read to you, but I'll go ahead and give it a shot. So whereas the ad hoc committee on freedom of expression, responding to the charge of the Faculty Senate, conducted a review of all existing university policies regarding academic freedom and freedom of expression for students, faculty, and staff. Whereas the committee's May 13, 2022 report to the Faculty Senate of the ad hoc committee on freedom of expression recommends the adoption of the Statement of Principles of Academic Freedom of Expression, as well as the revision of key university policies so as to establish explicit protection for academic freedom and free expression for faculty, staff, and students. Therefore, be it resolved that the Faculty Senate of the University of South Carolina affirms its support for the following Statement of Principles of Academic Freedom and Free Expression. The University of South Carolina supports, encourages, and defends freedom of inquiry for students, faculty, and staff, recognizes that academic freedom and free speech are foundational to the work of a university. Academic institutions exist for the transmission of knowledge, the pursuit of truth, the development of students, and the general well-being of society. That mission takes place in classrooms and labs, theaters, galleries, dorm rooms, and offices, and we affirm academic freedom in all of these spaces. Our identity as a public university also demands that we support free expression to the fullest extent of the First Amendment, and we embrace that charge. The University of South Carolina values the diversity of its community. Individuals of many different ages, gender expressions, races, religions, nationalities, physical abilities, political perspectives, sexual orientations, and other diverse characteristics constitute the University of South Carolina. Speech on campus comes from many kinds of speakers, and many audiences hear it, and the university is committed to upholding the rights of them all. We affirm that this diversity is a source of intellectual strength. Because of it, we learn more, produce more knowledge, enjoy greater creativity, and have a larger and more positive impact on the state of South Carolina and on the world. Both the principles of academic freedom and the constitutional protection of free expression maintain that unpopular, distasteful, and even repugnant speech all deserve protection. One's personal opinion, conviction that speech is false, misleading, or pernicious is no reason to suppress it. We recognize that the protection of speech we disagree with is fundamental to our own right to speak, teach, and learn freely. Interfering with the speech of others, the so-called heckler's veto, violates the rights of speakers and their audiences, and ultimately damages the environment for speech on campus for us all. Fostering the capacity of members of the university to engage in debate with those with whom we disagree is fundamental to the mission of the University of South Carolina. However, nothing guarantees speakers an approving or even passive audience. Members of the university are free to express their disagreement with speech on campus. The leadership of the university, speaking for the community as a whole, may also express its disapproval of speech that violates the values of diversity, inclusion, tolerance, and mutual respect expressed in the Carolinian Creed. The freedom to debate and discuss the merits of competing ideas does not, of course, mean that individuals may say whatever they wish, wherever they wish. The university may restrict expression that violates the law, that falsely defames a specific individual, that constitutes a genuine threat or harassment, that unjustifiably invades substantial privacy or confidentiality interests, or that is otherwise directly incompatible with the functioning of the university. In addition, the university may reasonably regulate the time, place, and manner of expression to ensure that it does not disrupt the ordinary activities of the University of South Carolina. But these narrow exceptions to the general principle of freedom of expression, these are narrow exceptions, and it is vitally important that these exceptions never be used in a manner that is inconsistent with the University of South Carolina's commitment to a completely free and open discussion of ideas. Preserving academic freedom and other forms of free expression is the shared responsibility of all members of the university community. Creating a culture of free expression, respectful, and productive engagement and disagreement on campus requires ongoing educational effort, not merely a mechanical application of rules. Nonetheless, the university does have a duty to develop policies and procedures that safeguard this freedom. The broadest possible participation of the members of the academic community should shape the formulation and application of these policies and procedures. And be it further resolved that the Faculty Senate urges university administration to adopt the following recommendations for revision of the University Policy Manual. Athletic Policy Division should refer to the University 6.00 policy on academic freedom described in item 7 below. The Public Media Relations Policy, which currently requires faculty to notify communication staff of all contact with the media and to provide them with all articles or op-eds prior to publication, and asserts that the communication staff may edit the material as necessary to conform to accepted journalistic style and standards, should be revised to accommodate the academic freedom rights of faculty as described in the faculty manual, which states that when faculty members speak or write as citizens, they shall be free from institutional censorship or discipline. They shall indicate that they are not speaking for the university. 3, equal opportunities policies should be updated to refer to freedom of expression and academic freedom. 4, the conflict of commitment language in the outside employment policy should be revised to protect academic freedom and ensure the faculty remain free, for example, to provide expert testimony. Because the definition of conflict of commitment appears in more than one policy division, revisions should be coordinated. Revisions should ensure consistency with conflict of commitment language in Academic Affairs 1.5, outside professional activities, Research 1.06, disclosure of financial interests, and management of conflicts of interest related to sponsor projects, and I don't know what BTRU is, but conflict of interest. Library policies should be revised to incorporate protections for academic freedom and freedom of expression, including protection for non-faculty librarians whose employment is not governed by the faculty manual. University 6.00 freedom of expression and access to campus should be revised to expand the scope of the policy with a new statement of purpose. This policy outlines academic freedom, speech, and expression as it relates to access to campus for students, faculty members, staff members, and members of the public as they participate in the teaching, research, or other official or non-official functions of the university. The definitions section of the policy should include academic freedom, the freedom of instructors to investigate, discuss, teach, and publish in their academic fields, and the freedom of students to learn without interference from political figures, boards of trustees, donors, or other entities. The first paragraph of the policy statement should be replaced with a version of the above adopted Statement of Principles of Academic Freedom and Free Expression. And be it further resolved that no later than 1 year after the adoption of this resolution, the chair of the Faculty Senate shall report on the university's progress towards completing these recommended revisions.
Okay, we have a motion for this resolution. Do I have a second? Oh, committee report keeps catching me with that. Okay, let's open it for discussion then. Yes, sir.
Point of inquiry, I'm Eric Dockstetter from English. Bill, do we have quorum?
Do you want to make a quorum call?
I want to know if it was checked.
Pardon?
Was it checked at the beginning of the meeting?
It was.
Okay, that's fine. I stand to make a motion. The motion is as follows. A motion to commit all current university FAC-sponsored proposals relevant to changes in the faculty manual, which are currently before the Senate, to commit those proposals for analysis and revision to relevant committees with resubmission to the Senate no earlier than September 2023.
So we have a motion on the floor. There's a new motion. Parliamentarian.
Which motions are you asking to be committed?
All of them that are on the agenda.
Oh, today?
It's a package.
Okay.
We haven't divided the question. They stand as a package
Yes.
right now. I move to commit all of them to relevant committees, and I'll speak to what those committees are and what they might do in my comments on the motion.
Do you have a second for the commit? Okay. Discussion on the motion to commit.
Liam Hine from
Yes.
nursing. My question or discussion point would be, we've had these for sufficient time. This is at least the second meeting that these motions from FAC have come up. Some have come up multiple meetings. Why would they go back to committee, Mr. Chairman, versus actually having done our homework before coming to the meeting and prepared, as well as the 4 town halls that were met on those particular proposals?
Great. We have a question for you, I believe.
I'm happy to answer that question from my colleague. And I'm going to talk for a few minutes,
10.
10. And I've got a timer on it, and I'll try not to go 10. And I'm conscious of not wanting to waste your time, and I'm not doing this on my own. I've been thinking a lot about basketball and astronauts in the last couple of days, and I've been thinking about our women's basketball team and their ability to move through the air and the way in which they can jump and the way that I wish I could jump like that. And I've been thinking about our astronauts and the fact that they aspire to slip the Surly bonds and to take pictures of the pale blue Earth and the pale blue dot. And the way in which technology meets existential questions and basketball meets questions of inspiration, and the way in which our basketball team aspires to achieve, and the way in which they reach, and the way in which they endeavor to discover themselves and their potential together in physical and aesthetic and ethical ways. And I think it's important to aspire, and it's important to breathe. And I don't think that aspiration is something that we should relegate to something outside of the rules that we live by. I want to read a couple of things to this body, and they're very short. The first is a pending bill in the Florida legislature that says the following: the legislature intends that the Board of Governors shall align the missions of each constituent university with the academic success of its students. Curriculum that promotes citizenship in a constitutional republic, the state's existing and emerging workforce needs. The board shall periodically review existing academic programs at each constituent university for alignment with the university's mission and provide direction to each constituent university to remove from its programs any major or minor that is based on or otherwise utilizes pedagogical methodology associated with critical theory, including but not limited to critical race theory, critical race studies, critical ethnic studies, radical feminist theory, radical gender theory, queer theory, critical social justice, or intersectionality as defined by the Board of Governors. Second thing that I'd like to read from you is from Justice Frankfurter in a decision called Sweezy versus New Hampshire, where he articulates and he quotes the 4 essential freedoms of the university. And he quotes, "It is the business of a university to provide that atmosphere which is most conducive to speculation, experiment, and creation. It is an atmosphere in which there prevail the 4 essential freedoms of a university to determine for itself on academic grounds who may teach, what may be taught, how shall it be taught, and who may be admitted to study." I would remind this body that more than one individual in the last month has been fired from institutions for teaching matters which are deemed objectionable and that those individuals have not had the protection of the institutional individual. The point. Everything on the agenda is related today. Each piece bears on the other. Voting rights bears on academic freedom, bears on the authority of committees, bears on the rules that we have for enhancing and promoting the careers of all of our colleagues. And it's complicated. And I don't think we have a clear picture yet. And the conversations that I've had with all deference to my colleagues suggest that many of our colleagues also don't have a clear picture yet, and that we do not yet know where we stand, and that there is confusion, and there is a press to rush, and there is a great deal of worry about what happens if we don't do anything. What is it that's at the heart of what we are doing? We are not changing the faculty manual. We are undertaking an inquiry into the conditions and the terms in which we define ourselves, who we are here, what we do here in higher education, for higher education. We are interested today in the question of what do we owe each other and how do we depend on one another. This work has to unfold to the standard that is appropriate to it. It has to unfold to the level, it has to meet the burdens of what it means to do work in a leading Research One institution. It must aspire. It must represent higher education. And we're not there yet. These proposals are a fine start, but they do not, on face, make the case that they claim to make. These proposals are not yet justified. They are not yet coherent, and they are not yet ready for debate. And I believe that is true in part and in whole. In part, starting with the professional track revisions, the creation of Part C in the faculty manual.
Excuse me, Mark, would you yield for a response back to your original question?
No. I won't.
Okay, then you may.
There is immense confusion from colleagues in many disciplines about what this new part of the faculty manual does. No report was issued, no report was written, and I have asked the chair of the committee directly if a report was written. No report was written justifying any of these changes. There has been little, if any, consultation with many professional track faculty. There is confusion within the ranks of professional track faculty, and this proposal offers them protection without representation as it stands today, and I believe another name for that is hypocrisy. This proposal creates a parallel governance structure. And that parallel governance structure is articulated in a singular committee that is charged to assess and evaluate professional track faculty. The architecture and the mission of that committee within any particular unit is yet poorly articulated. It is at deep odds with its democratic impulse to the point which I believe it is self-unraveling. And this parallel governance structure comes at the cost and at the risk of our collective strength as a university. On face, this is not ready for our debate. The professional track professional track faculty committee authorization is related to the changes in Part C and has to be considered only as Part C is finished. That proposal is also unhinged from the Senate when you compare it to other charges of committees as found in the faculty manual. On face, it is not ready for consideration. The voting rights change, which seems to be just a standardization of procedure, is an outright appropriation which many people do not understand and which many people express confusion over. There is no justification for this change. It may be at odds with academic freedom standards. It may contradict well thought out unit policies, and it may produce bizarre results in the form of allowing the university administration to revoke voting for certain populations and constituents, including tenure track faculty. The freedom of speech resolution. Lots of work has been done, and I have done a tremendous amount of work, and I have had many, many meetings, and I've talked to over 50 different people since I stood up at the last meeting about this. I don't understand, and many people also don't understand, why we're shifting this to a resolution and what it means. I think we're running away from complexity. I think we have a resolution which may produce bizarre results to the extent that the assumptions of this resolution in terms of we should not have aspirational language in the faculty manual means that we have to take the Carolina Creed out of the faculty manual. We have forsaken the question of how do we balance speech interests and academic freedom interests. We have forsaken the question of how do we craft a statement which articulates the mission of the university as a matter of academic freedom. On face, this is not ready for debate. Don't get lost in the parts. Everything here is related and none of it is yet justified. There are massive unexpected consequences that can follow from this package. A very smart and very level-headed colleague looked at me the other day and said, this is a blueprint for how you unravel and end tenure. And they're absolutely right. If you could design a plan to end tenure, this is exactly what you would do. And we haven't thought about that. One size fits all does not suit us. The university must act with one voice, but it must also understand its differences. It's important that we meet our burden of acting in the name of higher education.
You have reached your 10 minutes.
Astronauts and basketball players.
Let me make a clarification. These items are on the agenda and are being presented individually. They are not a package.
That's not true.
It is true. They're being brought, there are individual items on the agenda and they're being brought up by the committee one at a time. They're not with the motion. The motion was on the resolution and not on the other items.
Point of inquiry, please. Why do we divide the question at the last meeting then?
Why did we divide what question? The item.
At the last meeting, these had to be divided as questions, and we did so explicitly, and we did so by vote, and we have not done so at this meeting. These are presented. We can't talk about them all at the same time. That's true. They're presented as a package. I thought about this. There's no basis for this.
So you're interpreting that it's being brought as a single report.
There has been no motion to divide the package that was provided as a single file and presented as a set of reforms to the faculty manual. And in the last meeting, we differentiated that by dividing the question.
I do not remember a division of the question for the previous meeting. Items have been posted on the Faculty Senate webpage and in the agenda as individual separate items.
I can make the motion for each of these if you want to have this quibble. I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Well, we have one motion in front of us, and
okay,
you have spoken to that motion.
I moved to recommit, but I'm not willing to concede the parliamentary point, Bill. I don't think that We have not voted to divide these questions, and at the last meeting, we voted to divide them.
To postpone an item, but it was an item, it wasn't the whole package.
These are presented, it is not presented as a whole, a singular report of the committee. It's being presented as individual items coming from the committee. If you would like to continue the discussion to commit on this first item.
I don't want to
then-
bog this down, so the motion,
Okay.
I'll change the motion to, I vote to recommit this particular policy.
Do you have your second? Okay. You have discussion on this.
Yes, Frank Thorne, mathematics. I've been paying attention and I could have gotten confused, but I don't believe that I've seen this yet. I certainly haven't had the chance to share it with my colleagues. If I'm not mistaken, I'm hearing it for the first time and this feels important. So I would agree that we should wait until later for discussion.
I'm Carol Harrison from History, and I chaired the Committee on Free Expression. So I just wanted to clarify the timetable. The items in this resolution are the action items from the committee report that the committee submitted to the Senate in May of 2022, so nearly a year ago. They were presented and discussed at the last Faculty Senate meeting of the 2021-22 academic year, and they're basically pulled out of the committee report as resolutions that we would like to see actual action on, because as far as I'm aware, there's been no action on any of these items so far. Does that clarify?
Actually, I think you were in line first, so please go ahead.
Dan Brackman, School of Law. I think I have a parliamentary procedural question for the parliamentarian. We had a motion from the committee for a resolution.
Right.
That went into discussion. We then had a second motion without doing anything with the resolution motion that related to referring faculty manual change, committing faculty manual changes to committee for discussion, not to come back before December. This not being a faculty manual change at this point, that motion wouldn't seem to apply to this. And now that motion has been amended to include this, which is still not a faculty manual. Where are we procedurally is my question.
Okay, there was a motion, the resolution was presented, it was seconded. Then there was a motion to commit. We voted on the motion to commit. The motion to, we haven't voted on the motion to commit. We had a second. We're having discussion on the motion to commit.
Yeah, my colleague makes a good point. All right, and it's a terminological problem. This is not technically a proposal to change the faculty manual. It's a resolution of the Senate.
Right.
It comes from fact, which is encompassed in the intent of my motion. But yeah, technically you're right.
Right. The motion, as Professor Harrison said, the motion resulted from, one, the unfinished business from last month and from the committee report of last year. It was requested that FAC make the motion. Okay. Those are as it stands now, and that's information for you all. We are still in discussion as to the commit.
So, I mean, is it even appropriate then to remand this resolution in the way
Well,
that
we're going to
the?
vote on.
You have to
whether
vote.
you
Yep.
on his
Okay,
commit.
all right.
Are we committing the resolution or are we committing the faculty manual changes? That's what I'm
The
confused about.
intent of my motion is to commit this as well.
It's just the resolution. The agenda and the committee intent was to bring each of the items up separately. Okay? So what is before the body is the resolution that is being brought by Faculty Advisory Committee, and we are in discussion as to Professor Dockstedter's desire that this be committed.
I see your stand, did you have further discussion? Okay, yes, sir.
Mark McCauda, Health Promotion, Education, and Behavior. Senator Dockstetter made a comment about us feeling under pressure to do something. And I think we need to unpack that statement a little bit, because I don't know if we can move forward without really understanding what that may or may not mean.
Go there? Yeah, let's go there. There's a whispering campaign. If we don't do something, someone else will do it for us. And that whispering campaign is persistent, and I believe that there is, call it what you like, maybe it's friendly advice, maybe it's a threat. But if we don't do something here and now, and if we don't do something soon, somebody will do something for us, and we might not like that. And that's real. I believe it's real, and I've been told by people that I trust that it's real. And I'm not going home tonight having voted for something about free expression and academic freedom under the veil of a threat. I can't do that, and I don't think we should do that. I think it's inappropriate. I think it's dangerous. And I think this is where you draw the line. Not with excellence initiatives, not with soccer programs and online things that fail, and not with candidates that are vetted through the back door for president, and not founding documents, requirements that are then turned into weapons. This is the line. This is about academic freedom and freedom of speech. This is about who we are. We should sit with this question, and we should take up the complexity of this question, and we should have something in the faculty manual that says, this is what we believe about our power and our right to define who we are and what higher education is in this state, as that serves all of the constituencies of this university. Does that answer your question?
Any further discussion? Yeah, I see someone approaching.
Hi there.
Oh, are you a senator?
I think so.
I
think so, yes. Mary Ann Bickle, HRSM.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to try and be very diplomatic. You know, I come from a family of non-academics, so they're all in business. And one of the things they say is that, you know, academics take a long time to do anything. And sometimes we do. We take a long time to do anything. We like to think it over. And one of the things that I think, because I think it over, is that FAC has done a really hard job at trying to improve the system. And they've worked really, really hard. And they've done an extremely great job. And I've listened very carefully to what a lot of people have said. And some of it I've disagreed with and some of it I've agreed with. Here's what I've disagreed with. I don't believe there's a whispering campaign. I bristle whenever I hear people generalize and say, a lot of people I know, you know, I can only speak for myself. And I approve of what FAC has done but I also approve of the amendments. And if we don't move forward, we're just going to stay stuck in the mud. That's kind of like, think about all the courses that we've developed, but we didn't revise. We stay stuck in the mud and our students don't get enhanced. Well, if we don't improve this now, nothing's going to change. And you know what? We can always keep improving it in the future. It doesn't mean that this is perfect, but we can make changes in the future. But there will never be a perfect document. And I applaud FACT's hard work. And I can say that because I wasn't on the committee, and I can't imagine the amount of hours they worked on it. And there is no secret society trying to cut anybody's freedoms. We have a great job. We work for a great university. And I think they're just trying to help everybody work forward to getting a little better. Again, I'm just speaking for myself, but I will say this. I was in a meeting yesterday. I live in meetings. I do teach, but I live in meetings. And there were staff, no, I'm sorry, a professional track in that meeting. And they talked about this entire document, and they were so excited. And I didn't realize how excited they were for this to pass. And I'm like, really? It's that important to you? And they're like, are you kidding? Of course it is. I'm like, okay. I mean, it was really important to them, not just really important. And so that's my comment.
Any further discussion? Yes, I see there is. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Chris Yankee from International Business. So speaking to my colleague just now, my hunch is, and I could very well be wrong here, is that the people in that meeting were probably professional track faculty. Is it a combination of the two, and that's okay. Okay, great.
Yeah, sorry, just as a point, the question should go to the chair.
Oh, sorry.
And then
Okay.
out to, rather than having one-on-one discussion.
Understood.
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll correct in the future. So, look, I don't have an answer or an opinion on a decision, I guess, on what is right or wrong on this issue. I think it is most certainly not at either extreme where I have to buy into the notion of a secret society, nor is it to the far extreme where everybody is being straightforward on the up and honest, and we all want the best thing. And that kind of, all you have to do is look around, as our colleague has pointed out, at policies that are becoming laws in states that look a lot like ours. Okay, and what our colleague began with, and there is a lot to unpack there, and I make no judgment about where I fall on that one way or another, but there is a lot to unpack there with the basic argument that if you were to try to craft an incremental strategy to basically take out tenure, this is how you would do it. I don't know that our colleague is right about that, but I will say that that catches my ear very carefully. Because once you ring this bell, you can't unring it, or it becomes exceptionally hard to do. Okay, very, very recently, 2 days ago, as a matter of fact, we had a very lively vote, contentious, just call it contentious, in the Moore School, because as I understand it, the Moore School was the last school in the university system that did not have voting rights for professional track faculty. And we actually voted it down last fall. And I'll tell you, the reason it got voted down is not because we don't trust our professional track colleagues, and it's not because we don't think they're smart, and it's not because we don't think they're committed. It's because we didn't trust our dean's office. Okay, and that's just quantified in the campus climate survey. It's real straightforward. Okay, and but you get, the impetus, and this is all public knowledge and discussed in a public forum as recently as Monday, 2 days ago. That we were told that we need to hurry up and pass professional track voting rights because the faculty senate is about to make the change to the faculty manual. And we look real bad if we had it imposed on us instead of doing it ourselves. right? And so that doesn't sit very well. That's not an argument for why changes like this are making the university stronger. Okay, and so I withhold my judgment ultimately on what I think is going on here, but I am very sensitive to the fact that each of these pieces, no matter how it is handled parliamentarily as separate or as a combined package, they feed on each other. I'm going to need a little more clarity on how a resolution about academic freedom actually relates to professional track voting rights and that kind of thing, but we can save those details for later. But I am sensitive to the fact that once we approve each of the individual things, as hard as FAC worked, and as much as colleagues whom we value and respect want them, right, that it does ultimately add up to a body of work that one could imagine has consequences that go beyond what we originally intended. So how much has already been discussed and debated? And as my great colleague Liam has said, you know, what's going on here? Why don't we just do our homework ahead of time? I'm sensitive to that. If we have a discussion around, have we really done that homework? Has that discussion been had? If it has, then I think it's time to put up or shut up and just vote on the thing, right? But if we really haven't sort of considered the larger implications of where this might be leading, then I could get behind a resolution to put in more time on that.
Thank you. Also, just to remind, the discussion really should be focused on the motion at hand, which is a resolution, not faculty manual changes, but a resolution a motion to commit the motion on the resolution is what we're discussing right now. So yes, sir. I think you were waiting.
Dan Brackman, School of Law. I'm not sure if that last comment was pro or con, but I want to speak sort of narrowly pro doing this way, but I'm going to have to touch for a second on the other faculty manual changes, and it'll be obvious why. The question was raised, or the suggestion was made, that we shouldn't do this in a separate resolution, that this should be language that we carefully consider and put into the faculty manual. I'd like to point out that as far as I can find, and I've looked, I can't find any Supreme Court case that says there is a First Amendment right to academic freedom. Anytime the Supreme Court has upheld something as being academic freedom, they tend to look at faculty manuals, because it's basically what they tend to look at it like it's an employment contract. If we take the aspirational language and we put it into the faculty manual, first off, it's not necessary from a contractual point of view. Second, the more language you throw in that isn't necessary, the more ability you're giving some judge to take something you've said that you meant to be aspirational and run away with it. It's why we took in principle out of the previous motion. So it's problematic for us to put aspirational language into something that may be interpreted as a contract, because it creates ambiguity. It is much better for us, if we want to make these statements, which is really just a resolution asking the administration to do something, to put that stuff here, or to make statements about our belief here, and leave the faculty manual as the most solid contract we have, because that is how we protect our academic freedom.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm Sharon Gamina, College of Engineering and Computing, and I am professional faculty. So I guess my question goes to, how does the section on professional faculty, and I'm asking you as the chair, unravel tenure or contribute to the unraveling of tenure?
Well, those weren't my comments, so I'm not sure I can really respond to that.
It's not relevant to the
Yeah,
current discussion on commit.
The current discussion is, should we commit the motion to make this our resolution for further discussion? And we have not yet even, breached the issues of the professional track faculty manual changes or any of that.
I was just curious.
Yeah,
because
I didn't make that statement. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, I would hesitate to try to
answer
walk you
that.
through that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
This will be my second crack at it. I'll try and go in order. I'd be happy to work through the tenure connection at some point as it's appropriate. That's why I thought it made more sense to take these up as a package. I understand the importance of speaking only for oneself. I also understand that this is a representative body and that we stand as representatives of those who are not here, those in our departments and those across campus. And so at some level, as representatives, we have to speak for others, and I've consulted widely, and I'm not going to name names, and I think that's part of what we're doing here is we're thinking about how we're representing one another. I agree that FAC's done a lot of work. I agree more to the point that the ad hoc committee did a lot of work, and Carol Harrison in particular has my admiration. I'm puzzled by the fact that the ad hoc committee turned in their report in June and we saw evidence of it only in February. And I'm not aware that there were significant changes made in the draft that the ad hoc committee presented with what FAC presented us. It's not perfect, and that's not the goal. The question is it on face reasonable to take it up and debate it and implement it with a package of other things that bear on it? I'm not after perfection. I'm asking, do we understand it? And there are a number of people who don't understand what this is and don't understand how it works. And one of the implications, my learned colleague from law, I don't understand the threshold between aspirational and contractual, and that's a question that's been put to me by at least 5 other colleagues. I don't understand the threshold between what's necessary and unnecessary language. It goes back to that scene in Amadeus where somebody tells Mozart, there are too many notes in this symphony. Where do you draw that line? I would be in favor of a resolution that urges the university to pursue 1 through, and I don't know how many there are, 7 or 8, of the changes that were listed in the appendix to the ad hoc committee. Not willing to say that we're ready to implement the rest of the resolution. For one thing, coming back to what my learned colleague in law said, there is a great deal of aspirational language in the faculty manual, starting on page 1 or 2 with the turn to the Carolina Creed. If we're going to remove aspirational language from the faculty manual, my question is, do we have to take that out? And by the standards that have been presented here and at the town hall, we do. We have to take out the sentence in the civility passage on page 53 of the faculty manual that says that we are going to protect dignified, among other things, dignified communication, because there's a fundamental tension, which we haven't explored, between what this resolution says is important and good and what that part of the faculty manual says is unacceptable and actionable. It's not about perfection. It's about understanding what we're doing. It's about understanding to a degree that we can begin to predict the unexpected consequences that may follow from it. And that's something of a paradox, I understand that. But I think there are a number of warning signs here, some of which have been presented to me by colleagues, which I find compelling, that leads me to believe that we need to work on this more.
Any further discussion? All right. Oh, yes.
Just clarify one more time the timetable. So the report was presented to the Senate in May of 2022. It was discussed in the last Senate meeting of the 2021-22 academic year. It was posted to the website for then the following, I'm not sure how many months, and now is coming back up for discussion in February and March of 23. So it did not first reappear in February and March of 2023. So.
Okay, any further discussion?
Dan?
Mark Makata, HPEV.
Yeah, have you been up twice?
This is
sir?
my second.
I believe it's the second time, but the other fellow has been up twice. So we do have a
question the first time. Okay.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh, and I'm kind of looking forward to the professional faculty debate that's going to happen at the next meeting. And I understand the sort of like line between giving us voting rights and destroying tenure. I don't know if it's really, would happen, but I understand the logic. But anyway, just going back to the comment about, is it okay to do something because if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it for you? I guess that depends on the consequences of having someone else do it for you and what they might say. And is having something imperfect that we at least had our hands on that we could maybe improve later better than, especially with it's like the other side of the coin, especially the political climate that Eric, you were talking about, like leaving it open to chance and talking about what we feel personally. That seems to me to be a lot scarier than having at least a stance of our own that we can put forward and say that we at least, that reflects the principles that we at least know we have, even if we have to go back and do this all again next year.
Yes, sir.
I actually have another question. Item 1, or number 1 refers to item 7, but is there an item 7 below?
Oh, it's item 6, sorry. Not 7.
I should read item 6 below, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we will now vote on the motion, which is to commit the resolution back to committee, if I'm understanding that correctly. The resolution on academic freedom and freedom of expression back to committee. So that's what we're voting on. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Nay. We need to have a hands.
We're going to need to do a count. All senators need to be in the front half of the room so their vote can be counted. Let's see, I need another teller. It's best to have 2 people do a count. No, you've got the motion. You're involved.
Do we have a second count? What'd you call it?
Volunteer teller.
Do we have a volunteer teller who will? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll repeat that vote. Let me let Bill get down to the floor. All right, so all those in favor of committing this resolution back to committee, please raise your hand and keep it up until you're counted.
Yeah, keep your hands up, sorry.
Okay, we're good?
We need to double check.
Okay. Do you want me to go to the nays or do you want to confirm your count? Okay. All right. Okay, all those opposed to the motion, please raise your hand and keep it up till you're counted. Who knew you get a shoulder workout in at Faculty Senate meeting today, right? Okay, are we good, tellers, or do you need a second? I think you may put your hands down for now while they compare their counts. Thank you. The count was 17 for, 46 against, so the motion fails. And now I believe we move back to the original motion for the resolution as presented by the chair of the Faculty Advisory Committee. Is there any discussion on the resolution itself? Yes, sir.
Ed Madden, scary. English. I wanted to clarify something because I think it might affect how people think about the urgency or non-urgency of this resolution. When Eric mentioned the whispering campaign and people said there's no such thing as a whispering campaign, if you don't know this, this is fact, that on February 3rd, the Board of Trustees of Clemson forced the university to take the Chicago Principles as their standard for freedom of expression without consulting the Faculty Senate. I've heard, I don't know that this is fact, but at the pressure of Republican legislators. The reason that this was taken up was because the college Republicans at Clemson have repeatedly made anti-trans comments in social media. And the university said that it went against the university's, whatever they call it, their code of conduct, their creed. That to post that kind of thing, the university said violated the Clemson student creed. So the Board of Trustees on February 3rd passed the Chicago Principles. If you don't know the Chicago Principles, they say things like, it's all very vague language about freedom of expression, but it specifically says that the university cannot condemn harmful, these are the actual adjectives used. I'm trying to find it on my little phone. Although members of the university committee may think language is offensive, unwise, immoral, or wrong-headed, it is for the individual members of the university community, not for the university as an institution, to make those judgments for themselves or to act on those judgments, not by seeking to anyway. Basically, the university cannot take a position as an institution over statements like that. And I will just say, speaking for myself rather than for other people, in my third semester at this university, a radical Republican student newspaper published my home phone number and said, if you don't like having an openly gay professor teaching things like this at your university, this would be fall of 1995. I know that was a long time ago. But if you are concerned about this, you may find him at, and listed my home address and home phone number. The Faculty Senate promptly went through a resolution condemning harassment of openly lesbian and gay faculty, and then the president of the university, working with the Board of Trustees, promptly said they weren't going to add sexual orientation to our non-discrimination policy. So I'm very anxious and concerned about statements like this, about how we treat, how people who are part of the university community treat people who are minorities within that community. So I don't know that this will affect your sense of urgency about the reason we would pass this, or your sense of non-urgency that we want to think harder before we do pass it. But that's the context. When Eric says a whispering campaign, there is a legitimate factual context in which anti-trans comments were made at a university. The university administration said this breaks our code of our creed, and the Board of Trustees promptly passed the Chicago Principles, forcing the university to take a particular and specific position on how we treat freedom of expression without any consultation from the Faculty Senate. That is where we are now, and that's the suggestion then in the whispering campaign, is that we might face the same thing, that legislators might put pressure on our Board of Trustees to make a position that's for the university without consulting us. That's the context.
Yes, ma'am.
Linda Hazlett, Epidemiology and Biostatistics in the Arnold School. I have a point of inquiry, please, if you could go up to the top of the resolution.
Can I? I think I can. There we go.
Okay. In the paragraph that starts, the University of South Carolina values the diversity of its community. In the second sentence, my point of inquiry is, Are we including those with autism and other intellectual disabilities as well as mental health disabilities or disorders? I see physical abilities, but I don't see intellectual or mental.
We do say other diverse characteristics. I don't think we've specifically mentioned those characteristics.
Yeah, I don't think that saying other diverse characteristics is being inclusive enough in our language.
Would you like to make a motion to amend the resolution?
If we can include the word after nationalities, disabilities. So I move that we include the word disabilities in that paragraph.
Okay, we have a amendment to the resolution with a second. Is there any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The amendment passes. Any further discussion on the current motion?
Dan Brackman, School of Law. While we're doing that, on that previous point I pointed out where we had a 7 and we needed a 6, do we need to amend that formally?
Is that a Scribner's error? That's editing. We can do that.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, Michael Weisenberg, University Libraries. Seeing as how it looks like we're going to move forward with this, I want to propose a few small amendments that are based on what happened in the town hall that didn't get changed to this particular document. So if we could go to the beginning of it, the paragraph that starts, University of South Carolina supports, encourages, and defends freedom of inquiry for students, faculty, etc. In the sentence, yep, right there, the sentence, this mission takes place in classrooms and labs, etc. One thing is to either include the word libraries, because that is central to the mission of the university and where academic freedom takes place. However, as was brought up in the town hall meeting, if this is going to be specified as a list, if we leave something out, we're in trouble for leave something out, and if we list things, we're in trouble for listing specific things. So one workaround would be to just use a broad term like campus.
Is that your specific motion?
So my specific motion is to strike all the specificity out of this and use the more general term campus.
Is there a second for that amendment?
Across campus, excuse me, thank you. Across campus.
Cross campus, okay. There's a second. Did I hear a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the amendment?
That narrow? Is that narrow to only just? Wow. I just.
Can he ask a question of you? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember in the town hall there was also some talk about how we ought to include online spaces and other non-campus spaces. So is that?
So across campus and in
physical and virtual campus spaces.
Campus and its extensions? I mean, what about study abroad?
No, that's a good point.
Study abroad.
Yeah, please direct your questions up here for discussion or go to the mic since not everyone who's watching online can hear all the commentary.
physical and virtual campus spaces.
Physical and virtual campus spaces.
Correct.
Okay, that is the current amendment and the second still stands? Okay. Any further discussion on that amendment? Yeah, that Bob.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we have some discussion.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mark Manette, English. Just a problem without a solution that accompanies that is that at the end of the sentence it says we affirm academic freedom in all of these spaces, so that part of the sentence doesn't really work anymore if you change the previous part of the sentence.
Oh, thanks.
Did you want to add some more to that comment, sir?
Yeah, okay. So that mission takes place, just to read it out loud, that mission takes place in online and physical?
Physical and online.
Physical and online. Physical and virtual spaces, and we affirm academic freedom in all of these spaces, maybe in all of those spaces. I guess I have a question, so we would have to change to all of those spaces. But I guess my question would be, are we sure that the current list is just campus spaces, right, whether virtual or online, and doesn't include the work that we do in our home offices and these, I mean, do we want to get into that?
Yeah, I have no answer for that.
I'll accept the silence as a no.
Campus, virtual and physical campus spaces. Yeah, I'm not sure if campus might also count your home office. Any other discussion on the amendment as it currently stands? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Jennifer McArdle from Social Work. Kind of in this context, I just wonder where internships would land, because we do have internships where students actually have faculty, like nursing, who are physically on site with them at hospitals. So I just kind of want to throw a question out about internships.
That's a good point of discussion that might be suitable for a second amendment, but maybe we'll stick to discussion on the current amendment first and then move on to other changes that might need to be made. Okay. Any further discussion on the current amendment to add physical and virtual campus spaces instead of a list?
Well, instead of a space, why can't it just be an activity?
Physical and virtual campus activities.
That mission takes place in all university activities.
It's now an amendment.
I think that was a question.
Yeah, could it? It was a question. Yes.
Hi, Pyle Shaw, College of Education. To add to the list again, I'm thinking of particularly the work that faculty and students do in schools and other community organizations, where the line becomes even more blurred, particularly in this political climate. So,
right.
no.
Thank you.
No.
Yeah, thank you. There was a question whether activities could replace, I think spaces was sort of the question, and I guess I'd go back to the original proposer of the amendment, if that still fits the spirit of your amendment. So physical and virtual campus activities, or it could also be university activities, I suppose. Here I am offering amendments too.
I'm just writing this down right now, and I'm going to say something else. Really
Okay.
quick.
In the meantime, I'll move on to the, yes.
Mark McCauda, HBB. I don't know if the lawyers will club me for saying this, but what about just mission takes place in, but it's not limited to all those places? That way we're making suggestions, but we're not limiting ourselves to those suggestions, but we're being somewhat specific. Would that possibly work?
Again, a question I'll direct back to the original proposer of the amendment, if that would fit his. Yeah. The wordsmithing.
All right, so now this is going to get really, really silly, but, all right, this mission takes place in physical and virtual spaces and through its educational mission and activities and mission.
That's too much.
Oh, yeah, take out mission then, all right, so someone said it, and it's educational activities, or I can just take educational out, but.
Guys.
Our parliamentarian has a point of order.
Yeah.
That's too much of a change. Let's deal with the amendment as it was. If you want to vote it down and go back and wordsmith some more, you're more than welcome to. I do remind you, we do have a 5 o'clock hard stop, which gives us 29 less 5 minutes to complete whatever we can.
So this mission takes place in physical and virtual campus spaces? Yes.
That's the current amendment. All those, any further discussion on that amendment? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, barely. The nays have it. So that motion is defeated. Any further discussion on the original motion to approve this resolution as amended successfully previously?
Right.
Well, no, this motion has been, this resolution has been amended once successfully, correct?
Right.
So it's not the original. Right, to add the word disabilities, just to clarify the amendment that was successfully approved.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
And this is a question for FAC.
Could you identify yourself too? I'm sorry.
Eric Duxler from English. This is a question for FAC relative to the deliberation that's been had on turning this into a resolution. What's the relationship between a resolution and language in the faculty manual? So for instance, second paragraph, the paragraph that includes the sentence, one's personal conviction that speech is false, misleading, or pernicious is no reason to suppress it. How is that related or not related? And how will conflicts be adjudicated between the top of page 54 and the faculty manual defining incivility, which is behavior outside, and I'm quoting, outside the bonds of respectful, equitable, and dignified communication? Can the resolution trump the faculty manual?
The faculty manual is the governing document.
So this has no force and effect relative to the requirements, including the Carolina Creed on page 3 of the faculty manual and the civility policy. This has no bearing. It changes nothing relative to the adjudication of those issues.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Chris Yankee from International Business. I actually was focusing in on the same sentence here. One person's conviction that speech is false, misleading, or pernicious. I don't know if I should ask the chair or the committee for clarification. You know, the word false is a tricky one. You know, and it's kind of central to the university mission, which is distinguishing opinions from facts. Right? We can have statistical evidence or empirical realities, and then we can have alternative interpretations or opinions about those things that occur naturally in the world or occur in the world by point of fact. And so it seems to me that, I mean, the resolution itself, I think, is very valuable. Trying to distinguish between facts and opinions or you know, realities and interpretations or those kinds of things seems to me to be a very important one. So would it be appropriate to ask the committee for a clarification or someone's thinking on this? Because I'd love to see a more specific wording that distinguishes sort of evidence, objective evidence from subjective opinion or interpretation. That seems to me to be very important, as it would clarify a contradiction with the faculty manual or that kind of thing. You just can't show up with your own fact on, you know, what women or minorities make relative to white guys or something like that. Thank you.
The resolution is the work of many hands, and a lot of the language in this section of the resolution has been put together from other statements on academic freedom and freedom of speech and freedom of expression that have been published widely, including sections of the Chicago Statement. Also AAUP documents and so on. I don't know if Senator Harrison would like to address that. No? Okay.
Any further discussion? Are you? Okay, go ahead.
Casey Whitener from the Moore School Business Entrepreneurship. I would just like to say that as this is a resolution, it does not have any binding on contractual agreements, but it does set forward the ambition that we had, which is to chart our own path and define our own standards for this. I think I would support this as a resolution to be placed in front of any oncoming traffic. Thank you.
Yes. Mark Manette, English. I have maybe a potential solution to the spaces. So here it is. That sentence, let's start with that mission. That mission takes place in physical and virtual campus spaces, as well as in the work done by our faculty, students, and staff beyond campus, and we affirm academic freedom in all of these spaces.
Wait, don't go away.
Don't go away. Do I have a second for that? Okay. Any further discussion on this amendment? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
All right.
All those opposed? Okay, the motion or the amendment passes. The amendment to the motion passes.
Let's see.
And I assume you will send that language to.
Or you could give it to Samantha there in the yellow jacket.
Yeah, she's our scribe for recording this in real time. Okay. Back to the original motion as amended now twice. Oh, yes.
I think this is just a scribal matter, but having added disabilities, I think we could strike physical abilities. And I think that's the intent of the original amendment, really.
So that is an amendment, I suppose. Is there a second for that amendment? Is there any discussion on that amendment? Hearing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, that amendment stands or passes. All right, back to the original motion as now thrice amended, I believe, if I'm keeping count correctly. Any further discussion on that? Yes, sir.
Can we hear the Manette amendment again?
Senator Manette.
That mission takes place in physical and virtual campus spaces, as well as in the work done by our faculty, students, and staff beyond campus, and we affirm academic freedom in all of these spaces.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the current motion as amended? Okay, hearing none, I will move to the vote. All those in favor of adopting this. Sorry? Resolution. Yeah, adopting this resolution as amended, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, I hear the ayes have it, but I'm happy to count if anyone feels that's necessary. Okay. Motion passes.
All right. This is exciting. Okay, let's see where we. That one. So the FAC is bringing forward this proposed change to Section 1 of the faculty manual regarding the faculties of colleges, schools, and departments.
These are the changes, professional track.
This is the voting rights.
Oh, voting rights.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that the order in the agenda?
It
is? Okay.
Yeah.
So your motion is to approve these as submitted. So the motion is to approve these changes as submitted. There's no second needed. This is from committee. And is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'll move, Eric Doxler in English, I'll move to commit this proposal back to FAC and faculty welfare for further analysis and revision with resubmission to the Senate no earlier than September 2023.
Do I hear a second for the motion? Second. All right, open the floor for discussion. Liam, yes.
Liam Hine, nursing, also co-chair of faculty welfare. Faculty welfare is in full support of this proposal to the change to the faculty manual. We have voted on it, as well as the nursing caucus is also fully in support of this.
Okay, any further discussion?
What consultation with units was done by faculty welfare?
Faculty welfare, can you answer that question?
Faculty welfare has met since this was placed and voted on it.
Yeah, no,
we would be in support of professional track faculty.
I get that. But
hold on a second, please talk to the chair rather than the other. But I think he's asking if you've consulted with specific units before having a vote at the faculty welfare committee level, if I understand correctly.
Faculty welfare is an elected body from the Senate, and faculty welfare met, and those representatives, which are elected, put their support.
I understand that. That isn't the question.
Okay, so I'm sorry if I misstated it. Could you restate it again?
Yeah, no, the question is what units, departments, or other academic units were consulted as units or departments or whatever by faculty welfare as they deliberated on this particular proposal?
That is not in the charge, Madam Mr. Chairman,
that's
of
not
faculty welfare.
Yeah, thank you. That's not germane to the current amendment.
So the answer is none.
I just don't think it's a relevant question based on how these committees operate. There's no charge to them to consult individual units before they make a decision.
That is the charge of the actual faculty senators of those units, Mr.
Let me ask a different question. How many standing bylaws from different academic units, departments, and colleges were evaluated by faculty welfare and/or FAC in the consideration of this proposal?
I'll let those two committee chairs answer that question.
At the town hall meetings that we held where this proposed change was discussed, we heard from several different units with varying opinions about it. I don't think we didn't hear from every single unit, but
that wasn't my question, sir.
Yeah, I think the question was if you specifically consulted unit level bylaws, I guess, criteria, unit criteria, that sort of thing.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah. FAC, is that the same, or sorry, faculty wellness, is that the same? Sorry, I know.
Faculty welfare, as a principle, supports the rights of all faculty members, tenured and professional, and that's what we voted on.
Oh, okay. So, yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay, Aaron Dicker, English. I guess I have another point of inquiry for faculty welfare. If it is comprised of members of this body, my question is how many members on the faculty welfare committee are professional track faculty members?
I would have to, Mr. Chairman, check the roster, but we have a good percentage that are on both tracks.
Okay.
It is
okay, so there is mixed representation, but we don't have a precise number.
Okay, so then can I ask a straw poll of how many people in this room are professional track faculty members? So we're looking at somewhere between 20 and 30% on a straw poll.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Any further discussion? Go ahead, sir.
Brett Altschul, Physics and Astronomy. I just wanted to clarify that the Faculty Welfare Committee, like most committees, is not a committee of the Faculty Senate, but of the faculty. It is run out of, logistically, it's run out of the Faculty Senate office, but members do not need to be members of the Faculty Senate.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion? I believe this is your second time up, is that right?
The first was a question.
Oh, okay, fair enough, thank you.
I mean, the motion is to commit this. I don't want to vote against it necessarily, but this is being offered in the name of advancing professional track faculty's interest, but it's not clear that it does that. This consolidates the power to define who can vote. It consolidates a tremendous amount of definitional power into the university at the highest level. There are, as a matter of fact, a number of units whose bylaws will be in contradiction with that, with what's being proposed. The contradiction, I would suggest, is not evidence necessarily of bad faith on the part of those units, but in fact, evidence that academic units at all levels have thought closely and carefully in many cases about what they need to do and how they need to do it to best promote the well-being and happiness and success and careers of every member of their faculty. There's been no consultation with these units. This deletion creates a number of contradictions which have not been assessed. There is no clear justification for this deletion, and it is an incredible, very difficult to walk back consolidation of power at the highest levels of the university. I believe we need to think very carefully about what this means and how it's related to questions of academic freedom at the level of the department and of units and of colleges.
Okay, yes, sir.
Mark Makata, HPEB. Well, just a comment first that a lot of inequalities are sort of couched in, well, we need to do what's best for us and not necessarily what's best for everybody, and that we know best about what to do. So I think that's definitely a concern. I do think that if we're going to have a class of faculty at the university, and that class of faculty has to be treated consistently across all units, because if you don't do that, then you don't have a class of faculty, you have something else. Now we can define that class of faculty and what it is and who belongs in and who doesn't, but you can't, I don't think it's fair or reasonable to give differential rights to the same group of people across different departments. That doesn't give you a class of faculty. That gives you each department defining for itself what its faculty is. And I don't think that's really in line with, what we're aiming to do. I understand the fears, you start giving, that professional track faculty have, more to lose, so maybe that they're more willing to go with what the deans say, or that if you have too many of them voting, then, and we all have rights of academic freedom, then what do you need tenure for? Let's get rid of it. I mean, there's all kinds of doomsday scenarios where things could happen, but those things can happen anyway. If someone in the legislature is hell bent on getting rid of tenure, they don't need professional track faculty to do that. But I think it's important to be consistent across the units, and I think that if we're going to stand for the professional track faculty, then it has to be for everybody.
Great. And just to remind the senators, this discussion should be focused on the motion to commit at hand, which is to commit this first motion back to committee, back to two committees. So please try to stay on, germane to that topic. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, the chair wanted to make one quick comment.
Yep. So in answer to Senator Dockstadter's question, the Faculty Senate Chair at our last meeting asked all of the senators to take this proposal back to their units and get their input.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, sir.
I have 10 minutes, right?
That is correct.
Great. That should take us to 5.
We need to reserve the last 5 minutes for any other announcements, so unfortunately, you have 5.
No,
that's out of order. That's not how it works.
I was looking at, I'm sorry, never mind.
Yeah, he thought we have 2 clocks up here and one is wrong, so that was where the problem came.
Okay, I guess I'll reclaim the time. To put a little context into this, I am a member of the English department. I am a professional track member of the English department, and specifically in my contract language, I am only required to teach. I have no research requirement. I have no service requirement as per the way that is written in the College of Arts and Sciences guidelines. It is not a requirement. It is optional for department. And what's written in my letter, those two things are optional. In my conversations with other professional track faculty members around the university, it varies department to department what their requirements are. Some departments require service. Some departments require research. Some departments require only service and research and no teaching. So when we approach a question about should we uniformly create all professional track faculty members across the board, we're going to run into some problems. At the beginning of this academic year, the English department had a meeting with all their professional track faculty members in the entire department about the question that in the English department's guidelines, we don't have voting rights. So should we have voting rights? And the major concern that got brought up in our department was the idea that the moment we get voting rights, even though our contracts currently do not have a requirement for service, that we would be required to do service. Not because we have to, but because at the moment that we have the opportunity to do it, de facto, if it's not in your tenure and promotion file, even though it's not written, it has to be there. But since you have the right to vote, they're going to be looking for service in the tenure and promotion file. And mainly because large portions of the tenure and promotion committee are comprised of non-professional track faculty that are required to do service. In my conversations with other units, they were flabbergasted by the idea that, wait, your contract doesn't have service in it? Ours, we have to do it. The fear is that if we provide the vote, and if we approve what's going to be in the next meeting, which by the way, is a really, really not good document, and I have a lot of stuff and amendments to provide for that, that all of a sudden, the lowest level at our university of individuals who are teaching, like myself, who never was able to attend a town hall because every single town hall was during one of the many times I teach classes, that we will be forced into things like service that we won't be compensated for. And it's really easy for individuals who already have that in their contract or individuals who are on tenure and promotion lines to say, let's give a vote to everyone and not think about the consequences of the unpaid labor that the people who are doing the most unpaid labor will have to endure. And that to me is a very big problem. I think that's something that needs to be investigated very thoroughly. And I agree that we should delay voting on this and on section 2C.
That's not the current motion, though. The current motion is to commit this one item on voting rights back to committee.
Yeah. So I am in for pushing it to committee, giving us more time to be able to reanalyze this information. Because if the idea is to uniformly establish everything, then my contract doesn't work anymore. I'm not going to get my pay bump because the way that the new wording says is I'm not going to have the opportunity until 6 years of service at this university. But now I have to vote, and now I'm going to have to do service, and now I'm going to have more and more and more hours of unpaid labor.
Okay. Yes.
This will be my second time. So I think that, Mark McCloud, HPEB, I don't really necessarily see those two as connected. First of all, there's unpaid labor across the university for pretty much everybody. That includes tenured faculty and tenure track faculty and non-tenure track faculty. And I don't really particularly buy the argument that granting people higher level of engagement hurts them in some way. When you have to kind of go through multiple levels of sort of what ifs to get there. And also, you know, want to use the tenure track faculty as an example, they have a perfect right to be disengaged if that's what they so choose and do the bare minimum. And I suspect that for anyone who has the voting rights, you can be engaged or unengaged or disengaged as much as you would like. But I think that denying rights to a group of people based on some of these arguments, I think it's just, I do not agree with that logic.
Yes.
Yes, Frank Thorne, mathematics. I just want to point out a quote, not in the actual proposed text, but the justification.
Well, the current motion is to commit this back to committee. Is it germane to that motion?
It is.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thank you.
So it's Vice Provost Addy strongly supports this expansion of faculty voting rights and assures us a corresponding revision of the policy will pose no difficulties. I mean, I think one thing one can conclude from all these comments is that this is controversial. I think we need to decide this matter for ourselves. In particular, if we disagree with the provost's office, what would happen if something was up for a vote in some department? And so I think this is one reason why, this would benefit from discussion and understanding exactly what we're voting on.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Aaron, second time, Aaron Dicker, Department of English. My comments are not whether or not we should or should not have the vote. I am not saying anything about whether or not I agree or disagree with the policy. I'm agreeing with the motion to send it back to committee, because I think there needs to be more time that is spent investigating this conversation, particularly with professional track faculty who often cannot attend meetings in the middle of the day at town halls because they are doing the labor of teaching multiple classes. And if we can't have that conversation, then we need to send it back to committee.
Any further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Bree Dunn, Chair of UCPTF, University Compendium, Professional Track Faculty. I will say in a future revision, which I guess will be at the April the 19th, there is a proposed revision for consideration, which was discussed at the town hall.
Sorry, just to clarify, is this germane to the motion to commit?
It does.
Okay, all right, thank you.
A reasonable expectation of service to allow for participation in faculty governance, and so a baseline expectation of service that would allow for faculty governance involvement as would see fit, and so that I guess relates to what was discussed.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Marco Valtorta, Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Bree made the point already, but I just wanted to emphasize again that this point was discussed at length, both in a town hall and within the Committee on Professional Track Faculty, and that led to the language that Bree read that would be proposed by the committee in 2C. I realize we're not talking about 2C, but the expectation is that that language will be introduced, and the language says again, all full-time instructional faculty should have reasonable expectation for service to allow for participation in faculty governance. So we did discuss this at length, and we have a solution, we think. I hope that the Senate will agree to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this motion to commit? And if you've already been up
I have
twice.
a point of inquiry.
Yes, sir, go ahead then.
Question.
Yes.
So just to clarify, if I'm figuring this out correctly, the reasonable chance to perform service, does that imply that service will happen? Or that they only have a possible opportunity for service? Just an opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's not necessarily relevant for the current motion to commit Now we're getting ahead of ourselves into other items further down the chain. Yes, sir.
I'll be quick. This entire discussion is evidence that we should commit this. One of the things that I said at the very beginning is we have to be very careful about assuming the logic of protection without the logic of representation, which is precisely what I've heard. I've heard one of my professional track faculty colleagues literally talked over, telling him that actually his interests aren't his interests and that someone else knows what his interests are. We need to take this back and we need to look at it, we need to think about it, and what we may or may not have a reasonable expectation of doing relative to the huge question of introducing the service requirement is inconsequential to the motion. This should be committed.
Okay, we have 1 minute left for today's discussion, so if you'd like to, you can go ahead.
That goes to my point. My phone says it's 5 o'clock. I was going to move to postpone discussion to the special called meeting.
Oh, you should have given, my sincere apologies. I'm using the clock on the podium, which says 4:54. Okay, so at this point, we'll have to stop discussion on this and pick this back up at the called meeting. Are there any announcements that need to go out today before we adjourn?
Yeah, I'd like to make an announcement relative to the discussions that we had today. And remember that you all, as Professor Dockstader said, that you all are representatives of your faculties. It is your responsibility to know what is upcoming and what is on the agenda and to prepare your faculties and to gather information from your faculties about the information that is going to be discussed at a Faculty Senate meeting. Thank you very much. I think you all did wonderful.
Okay, I would also like to commend you all for some very insightful and courteous discussion today. I move that we adjourn. Is there a second? Second. All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, see you on the 19th.